Virgo, this is your week ahead astrology forecast by Astrology Motivation from Born Without Boundaries. In these weekly videos, I review the major planetary aspects and transits, and I let you know how they impact your natal sun and what that means for your day to day. All you need to know to enjoy these videos is your birth date, because I will translate the rest. So we're going to start out really broad with the big stuff, the stuff that is for everyone. And then I'm going to focus down into Virgo specific information. And then I'll break everything down into the 3 decans of Virgo. A decan is a group of 10 degrees, and there are 3 in every zodiac sign because there's a total of 30 degrees in every zodiac sign. And depending on where your natal sun is, in which decan it is, I'll be able to know which angle your natal sun is making to the other planets, which creates the aspect between them. An aspect between 2 planets is a relationship or an energy that is created between these 2 planets based on the angle they're making to each other on the zodiac wheel. So I'll be able to tell you what is happening in your life based on where your natal sun is located. So all you need to know is your birth date, because I will translate the relative decans into the dates or birth date spans that correlate with them. Let's start with the big stuff. And there is a lot of big stuff that is going on this week. I always take my notes, so it's written down. If you see me looking down, it's because I have it all written down. Big stuff. Well, the sun is going to be transiting this week into Leo because we begin Leo season. It happens on the 23rd. Sun transiting into Leo is beautiful energy. It's radiant. It's courageous. It's look at me, it's confident, and it's definitely a sense of peace with the self. Now, while right now and while it's for all next week transiting into Leo, the sun is going to be in direct opposition to Pluto. So opposition to Pluto means extra power, extra intensity, and dynamic changes to the sun, how we see ourselves, what we think about ourselves, even our ego itself. As in addition, the sun and Pluto both are square to the nodes as well, and they just made a huge transit into their new homes for the next 18 months. So a lot of how we see ourselves and how ourselves is presented and how we have to grow up and change and mature, and the differences that we're going to make within the self are going to be played out where the nodes are. And those nodes right now are in Libra, that's where the south node is, and in Aries, that's where the north node is. And so the stage in which all of these dynamic changes and opportunity for growth happens is the stage of duality versus singularity, the partnership versus individuality. And they're not actually separate things. The north and south node are the same path. It's just where you begin and where you end. So right now we begin in this comfort zone of partnership, or maybe what we've learned to think partnership should be. And then over here we have the individual. And honestly, that's the discomfort zone. Like, how have we not grown? And it's weird because you'd think we live in such an individual, at least over here in the States and the Western world, we live in such an individualistic world. You'd think, why wouldn't that be the strength? Well, we're being challenged now to think, where have we been wrong about the individual and the version of individuality that we have created? Because if it is in isolation and exclusion from true partnership and being able to share yourself with someone else, then the individuality is actually not healthy at all, because where one is toxic, they're both toxic. And so basically, the difficulties with one are going to expose the over excess in the other, so that we can recalibrate and balance between the two. And that's really what growing up is. And that's really what maturing is being able to harmonize your dualities. So the fact that the sun is going into Leo square to this energy and in opposition to Pluto, there is a dynamic change to the ego and the self that is going to be occurring, or at least awakening right now. We also have Venus going retrograde on the 23rd of July, also in Leo. So there's a lot that's happening in Leo, and Leo represents our heart. Stop. It's not emotions or feelings. It's our heart. And our heart is essentially the megaphone of God in us. It speaks, it talks to us, and how well we hear it, and Leos are really excellent at hearing it, is how well we live our lives and fully love our experience in this world as ourselves. So that's what we're learning. And Venus is at the very last, is in the very last decan of Leo right now, as she begins her retrograde at 28 degrees Leo. This is a time basically for us to regather our thoughts when it comes to what we value in our value systems and what we find attractive and why. And even in some cases, how we've spent our money, what our resources are doing, and where we've put those resources. That is going to be reviewed. There could also be a retrospective, a review of all of these things that we've started and maybe missed. So we have Venus in Leo, I think, for the next 40 days, something like that. It doesn't come out until September. It'll be in retrograde for all of August. So I think get ready. I don't think it's going to be a terrible thing, is what I'm trying to say. I think it's going to be something that we need in order to let go of all this excess that we're carrying, that we don't need to be carrying. Venus is, in fact, as she begins her retrograde, sextile to the South Node. So she's trying to sort of help the South Node understand different aspects of what it's gotten too comfortable with. And she's trying the North Node to make peace and harmony with this other aspect that has grown sort of neglected in some ways. So we also have Mercury doing some interesting things. Mercury is square to Uranus. And that could go for a lot of glitches, especially in terms of the internet and things like that. Technology could really start to glitch out when Mercury is square to Uranus. But it's also, Mercury is also conjunct to Venus, at least by like the 23rd, 24th. The conjunction starts to get really strong. And that's going to be really beautiful energy when it comes to being able to express ourselves in a way that is eloquent and people want to listen to. And with Venus in retrograde, that could be very, very useful for us, at least in the first couple of days. Jupiter's doing some interesting stuff too. Jupiter is trine to Mars, and that means opportunity that is going to be very fortuitous when you take action. Now, Mars is also opposite Saturn, which means it's resentful and restricted, and with Saturn semi-square to Chiron, there is this and Jupiter semi-square to Neptune, there is this sense of, if I don't believe my imagination, I'm always going to be stuck. Because in a way, maybe I've stopped believing that maybe I've stopped believing or stopped having faith, or my faith has been interrupted because of all these restrictions, because of all of these, no, you can't do it, or you're never going to be good enough or be able to move forward because. And that seems to be the catalyst for why we're deciding, well, then screw it. I'm not going to make any sense out of it. I'm just going to do it anyway. That kind of energy, I think, is really building in us. And some weird and wonderful things could happen, especially through us, with us taking chances that we never thought we'd take. Ones where we follow our heart more. On the 22nd, an interesting thing happens because there's a grand trine when the moon is in the last decan of Virgo. There's a grand trine that happens between the moon, Pluto, and Uranus for that part of the day. Harmony with shifting moods and mentalities. There is a slacking in earth energy, this earth energy that is keeping us so restricted right now because Mars is in Virgo. This sort of slacking of it, and there could be a break because the moon is also in opposition to Neptune here. The break in, is reality really that inflexible? Are all these restrictions, are all these requirements really required? Like, how real is the reality that we've put in place? This is a really nice question to have, especially on this day. I want to go through and just see really quickly. Yeah, covered all the big stuff, at least I think. Always feel free to write something below if you think I missed anything. Let's get into Virgo specific energy, shall we? So what I look for Virgo specific is what's happening in Virgo, number one, the zodiac sign, and number two, what's happening with your ruling dignitary, which is Mercury. A lot's happening with Mercury, but let's start with Virgo. In Virgo, we have Mars, and Mars is going to be moving between 6 degrees and 10 degrees this week, but the moon is also going to be there between the 21st and the 23rd. The moon will move between 31 degrees and 29 degrees Virgo. So when it comes to the second decan and third decan Virgos, your natal suns are going to be conjunct to the moon between the 21st and the 23rd. What does that mean? It means harmony with the self. And for those of you on the 22nd who are in the third decan, when the moon is in direct opposition to Neptune, which means illusion, delusion, the id, being challenged by imagination and mystery itself, this sense of self-delusion and sense of hypersensitivity will kind of be actualized. It'll become visceral almost to you, for you to see where you have sort of deceived yourself in terms of, and think of the other square, think of the other trine. The moon will be trine to Pluto and trine to Uranus, which are trine to each other. This sense of, where have I deceived myself in the way that things are, in that the way that things are the way that they're supposed to be, when there are actually other paths and other choices through my imagination and possibility, and being willing to change and transmute and grow up and change and develop, I can actually see the delusion in the consistency, see the delusion in the way that I've kept things this whole time. That kind of energy. So it could be a profound wake up, especially for you guys born in the last decan of Virgo on those days, or on the 22nd. Absolutely. So what's going on with Mercury? What is going on with Mercury? Mercury is in Leo. It is moving between 19 and 28 degrees Leo. That's really interesting. It looks like it's slowing up, but yeah, that's where it will meet Venus by the middle of this week. It will conjunct with Venus. So by the 24th, it's going to be conjunct with Venus. It's going to be square to Uranus this whole week, which is very weird, and weird as in weird stuff will happen. Glitches that are unexpected when it comes to the internet, when it comes to social media. Glitches. Like there's miscommunication between the upper thought process, the more grandiose thoughts, and just basic communication and how that's being translated into tangible and palpable information. So there could be a lot of glitches there all week. By the 27th, which is at the very end of this week, Mercury will also be so conjunct to Venus that it is simultaneously sextile to the south node and trine to the north node. And all week long, it is going to be quincunx to Neptune. Okay, so quincunx between Neptune and Mercury could also be distractibility, the sense of being frustrated with what we see and questioning our reality. But the sextile to the north, sextile to the south node and trine to the north node is this opportunity of sorts to recalibrate the way that we see the world. And I think it's really interesting how intellect and imagination is being pitted against each other right now as we recalibrate the world. Because what have we just imagined, or what decisions have we made out of delusion that has blocked us in and restricted us and became what controls us instead of what liberates us and allows us to do things? Because the goal of the practical mind is to figure out how to do things, how to figure out things, not to restrict and say you can't and you shouldn't, and if you do, then you're wrong or you're bad. You know, the purpose of the practical mind is to definitely measure what can be done and how it can be done. it's not really meant to say, to block us in and to become our own prison. And I think that there are certain things, especially when it comes to partnership versus individuality, that are incorrect and that are getting in our way and that have become our prison. And this is what has to be recalibrated. And Mercury is playing a big role in that. So let's go into the decans, shall we, Virgo? If you know that your natal sun is between 0 and 9 degrees Virgo, you are a Virgo 1 because your sun is in the first decan of Virgo. This correlates to August Virgos. So say August 22nd through the 31st would be around the birth date span of Virgo 1s. Your natal suns, like I said, on the 22nd that would be Virgo 3s, I apologize. So your natal suns all week long are conjunct to Mars, which could give a pretty, because Mars is doing a lot with this trine to Jupiter and opposition to Pluto. Actually, the trine to Jupiter is happening more for those in the second decan. But because Mars is being impacted, it's a sense of really hyper agitation and really hyper frustration that makes you want to take action and do things more. So this could mean you'd be more pop-offish, you'd be more impulsive this week, but it could also mean that you get more done and that you don't think as much and you act more. And this is a really good week for that. So definitely trust those impulses to act more this week, because it is almost like that's what Mars is being inspired to do. And since it's conjunct your natal sun, you will take that on, that energy. It will volumize you and your capabilities, and you'll have more courage to take action where you normally wouldn't. And then we have an opposition to Saturn. Your natal suns, whether Mars is there or not, or have been opposite Saturn for a while, and they will be all year long. What does that mean? Restrictions, and feeling the weight of feeling restricted, and feeling like even who you are is being restricted. And that's going to build. And I think this week is a week for you to pop off with that shit and figure a way to move forward anyway. And then you have a quincunx to Pluto, which means agitation and frustration when it comes to change, dynamic change, things that you have to change, maybe frustrating yourself from deep down inside based on things you've repressed. Now, all of this will come to a head because Mars is sitting there riding your natal sun right now. So it's a sense of questioning your own reality, or the reality that you've designed for yourself, to see whether or not you've restricted yourself in ways that have really harmed your life instead of helped it. So all of these questions in your mind or impulses to take action could be happening now, where you thought or felt that you were or things were hopeless, or that you couldn't do anything at all. And that's not true. I think that this would be a very powerful week for you. A week where maybe in some ways you take back your power. So let's move on to Virgo 2s. Virgo 2s. If your natal suns are between 10 and 19 degrees Virgo, you are Virgo 2s. This correlates to birthdays between, say, September 1st and the 10th. Your natal suns are trine to Jupiter. Jupiter is at, I think, 12 degrees Taurus. This is very optimistic, and this will impact you for the next week or so, a couple of weeks, where your heart will expand beyond what it normally does, and it will open up to possibilities and learning. It's through learning, and you guys love to learn. Education is big, so it's like the impulse to learn more about foreign cultures, things that are foreign to you, the ability to open and expand your heart to allow yourself to be interested and not judge. It's a much less judgmental energy, right? So there's a sense of where you lack judgment, your curiosity is amplified. And so this is a very exploratory time for you. We also have a long-term quincunx to Chiron, which means that actually for a couple of years, your traumas or challenging lessons, maybe it feels like everything has always been difficult, or things are a little bit too difficult for you. Why are things so difficult? To point out where you need to be stronger. And you could be where things are challenging you or making you suffer. You could be looking now in a broader perspective for those solutions and answers, realizing that if the answers aren't in front of you, you have to open yourself up to the wider world. And then we have the the semi-square to the sun, which means there is a diminished sense of courage. But it also, I think, in terms of these other energies, it's not necessarily not courage. It's I'm not at a point where I want to be seen. I find that this week for you is I want to study. I want quiet time to learn and be able to see what else is out there. I don't want to have to be seen. I don't want to have to be paid attention to. I don't want that stuff right now, because there isn't the confidence level where I can announce my shit. I can say I've found the answer, but there's a wonderful opportunity to explore for that answer that I think will really help you guys this week. Okay, Virgo 3s. So if your natal suns are between 20 and 29 degrees Virgo, you are Virgo 3s. And that correlates to birthdays between September 11th and the 21st. Virgo 3s, your natal suns have a long-term opposition to Neptune. What does that mean? It's more delusional. You're more easily distracted. You're more easily sort of romantic in that you'll believe things more easily than normal. Is this always bad? It's always bad because it's always happening. If it was only happening once in a while, it would be less challenging. But your dreams will frustrate you. They will be hyper stimulated right now to the point of distraction, and it is best. And this is Neptune is going to be in this position for years. So at least the next year plus. So there's this sense of learning how to deal with this very stimulating but also very distracting energy, and finding a creative outlet could really, really help you. But this is long term. This week, sextile to the sun, if you are at the cusps. So the cusps between Virgo and Libra. So that's people born to the 20th and the 21st. If your birthday's on the 22nd and you're a Virgo, that would be you too. Your natal suns are going to be sextile to the current sun, which means courage, which means amped up sense of life purpose, and your confidence will get you so many opportunities this week. In fact, opportunities could come to you because you shine and you're easily seen. So this confidence is really going to be like it's a week to move forward, to take action and initiative, because that confidence will lead you toward open doors, or doors that want to open for you. And you'll feel a lot more confident. And then we have creative. So it could actually tap into creative energy for what to do with those dream stimulations or those creative inspirations or muses that you need to find a conduit for. You could find a conduit for it this week, or being creative can really, really create something beautiful this week. Your natal suns are also trine to Uranus, long-term trine to Uranus, long-term trine to Pluto. So ingenuity and change and faith in the future and what could be. You are, honestly, if I had to add it up, Virgo 3s are the least Virgo of all Virgos right now. And there is this energy in you to not believe reality that's been defined, but to find reality yourself through what you can imagine. And I would say, let it loose. Let it loose, let it happen. And any action that you take this week will be made in confidence and will be successful. So definitely go for it. I love you guys. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you have, please remember to like it and definitely subscribe to the channel to help us grow over here. And then come on over to Born Without Boundaries Tarot for your week ahead tarot card reading. I love you, and I'll see you there.